Testing 1, 2. Oh, wow. All right. So we're live. What's going on, One Lifers? Donnie Rouse here. And today I want to talk about letting go. But more specifically, I want to talk about your personal power to not let the events of your day dictate the way you feel in your day, as well as how you proceed through life. So let me ask you a question, though. What throws you off in your day? Is it like the little things? Is it sitting in traffic? Is it someone not doing something the way you expected them to do it? And I want you to really understand what it is that gets in the way of you just feeling your best. Because what I'm going to eventually get to is the fact that we have the power to control what we allow in and how we react. I want to share a story with you. So last week I had given I was at the gym, and one of the guys who works at the gym had asked me for a bottle of espresso. He goes, "Hey, you have your espresso?" He's like, "Can you bring me a bottle?" I had a feeling that he was looking for a freebie. And so I told him, I messaged him saying, "Well, here's the bottle. This is what the bottles cost. They're $23. I'll give you a $3 discount to try it. And I could bring it Monday." So he goes, "Yeah, I just want to try it." Right. So I'm like, all right, the language there was already a little bit kind of weak, meaning like I'm expecting, I was reading that he expects me to just give him the bottle. So I brought the bottle in, I showed him it, I explained how to use my espresso. And then he goes, "Oh, can you, I told him $20. And he's like, "Can I Zelle you?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, you can Zelle me." He's like, "Well, can I Zelle you tomorrow or the next day?" I'm like, all right, fine. Right. Inside, I'm like, you know what? Whenever there's a transaction, like in a business transaction, it happens when you give something, then you receive it. Right. But I wanting to be like, play the nice guy. And I was like, all right, let me just give it to him. And then but I kind of knew that he was never going to send the money. So I go home that day, and the entire time my mind is kind of swirling around this, like, yeah, he's never going to send the money. And I started focusing on it. And it's like anytime you plant a seed and you continue to water it, that seed grows. The only thing is when it's something negative, it's not even a tree. What you're planting is a weed. So this thing was germinating and just growing the entire week, and it was just throwing off my mood. Over $20, right? Because part of me was upset that not so much that that it was the money for the bottle, but I was upset with myself for not standing my ground and for realizing this situation was gonna transpire in not having the courage or the confidence or whatever you want to say to follow what I was really feeling, to set that boundary. Fast forward a week, and I am at the gym, and I see him pass by. I'm like, "Hey, how did you like the espresso?" "Oh, very good." And he was going on talking about something. I don't even know what he was talking about. And I said, I never got the Zelle. "Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I was like, you know what? I said, "Don't worry about it. Consider this a gift from me to you." Then he came back. He's like, "No, no, no. This is your business. You need to make money." I was like, "Don't worry about it. This is a gift. Just enjoy it." Then he's like, "Oh, the next one I'll pay you 25." Right? He went from not paying to now wanting to pay me more for the same bottle. I'm like, "Don't worry about it. Go enjoy it." Why did I do that? Right? Like, what was my reasoning behind doing it? Was it just to say, like, to write it off and say, it's not worth the energy? Because I did lay my boundary. I said, "Listen, this call." I did say to him, I said, "This costs me money. Like, I have to produce it, right? It takes energy, money to actually produce this, but I'm going to give it to you this time." Driving back, let me continue the story, and then all the pieces will fit together. So driving back, I was driving left the gym, and I was going to pick up some Japanese short grain rice for my niece who was going back to school. Driving on the highway, I started looking out the window. I was admiring the way the sun was starting to set, and it was like a train was going by, and there was like this, green foliage near the train station. I was just in an appreciative state. And I started to think back on that incident. I was like, well, why, I knew why I did it, and I'll tell you right now. The reason I did it was because I realized the cost was so much more than $20. The cost it was having on my mind and my attention was so much more than the $20. I decided that I wasn't going to deal with that. I wasn't going to say, yeah, you Zell me tomorrow. I didn't want it off my plate. And I took it as a learning lesson. I turned one to reinforce a boundary when this situation were to happen sometime in the future, because I know it will. But then secondly, as I was driving and I was just thinking about this, like, well, I let go of this because of the mental space it was doing. And it was actually I was paying much more than the price of that bottle. And how I decided to let it go, it just felt freeing. Then I thought to myself, I was like, well, if I can do that with this instance here, then I can do that with anything in life. I get stuck in traffic or something, I don't get as much done in my brew day or whatever it may be. I have a choice to let it all go and to not let it bother me. So I went down, I go to the Japanese store to pick up the rice. They're closed. And immediately now I had to put this new teaching, this new lesson into practice. So I did it and I let it roll off me where I would have been a little bit perturbed. Going back, I hit some traffic. And instead of looking at the traffic and letting it bother me, I remembered that lesson. And I started to look out and just appreciate that, like, the sun was out. It was a beautiful close to the day. And I started looking out and just appreciating the sights as the sun was setting. I continue further. I go into, I went to get some dinner at a food store. Again, traffic, rerouting, all this stuff. And it just rolled off of me because I made the conscious choice for it to roll off me. How powerful do you think that would be if you decided to take control of your personal power in terms of what you focused on and the meaning you gave it, and just to say, you know what, it's not worth the energy, and just to pass it off? How powerful would that be in your day? I'm going to give you one more example. I was reading this book on by a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and he was saying that when he looked at his daily life, he realized that most of his home life, while he had like 5 children, most of his home life, he was kind of like, wasn't really happy at home. Not to say that he wasn't happy, but his emotions were just kind of flatlined. He was out in the yard and he was doing gardening, and his daughter was outside playing. And gardening being one of his passions, he's pulling out the weeds, throwing them to the side, and then he looks back and his daughter is taking the weed, just throwing them up in the air and having a blast. So he turns around and he scolds her, and she turns around and says to him, I think she's 5 years old now, right? She told Daddy, she's like, I decided when I was 3 that when I turned 5, I was no longer going to whine. I am 5 years old now, and I am not whining. She goes, I can decide not to whine. You can decide not to be a grouch. And he said he was like blown away that his daughter said this to him. And he realized that he had the choice how he responded to that situation. So much of our days are really not even really conscious at all. They're just reciting a pattern or a habit that we have. But if you are to change that habit, the power becomes in recognizing what the pattern is, first of all, but then and then giving it something else to kind of latch onto rather than going down that traditional road, right? It's like a desire path. What is a desire path? I mean, it's great. And in terms of like going after your desire, it's the thing you think about that kind of, as you think about it more and more, it starts to create a path towards that direction. So the problem is that most people create a desire path towards the shit that they don't want, towards the feelings they don't want. But you can change that just by doing exactly as I did in this example. The example I noticed the pattern, like the things that normally tick me off, right? The things being in traffic, being too hot, whatever it may be. But then decided to change that pattern by realizing that I could let it go. And then having that experience that I had just mentioned with the bottle gave me the financial, the leverage to say that I don't need to play out this pattern anymore. And you have that same choice. So, in closing, I want you to just kind of think of the things in your day. Think of the things in your day that just kind of throw you off and decide, what if you were to just let it go? Like let's play hypothetical. What if you were to just let it go? You weren't going to let it bother you. How would that change how you approach your day? And it's not just enough to just say, let's not do this, but what are you going to do instead? What can you focus on instead that'll give you the more empowering meaning? One of the things I like to do, and I'll end it with this, is I like to look for the greatness in every single moment, right? Because there's always something there. You just have to seek it out. You know, when I'm roasting coffee, I could be very hard on myself because I'm roasting it and I'm trying to aim for like perfection in a way, for lack of better words, when the truth is that it's a process. And if I could take the time to stop and say, all right, if I were being realistic with the experience I'm having right now, with the actions I'm taking, is this normal, right? Is this how it is supposed to unfold? If I'm honest with myself, I'm like, oh, yeah, of course, right? Like new coffee, trying to create a roast curve. Like the first roast, there's no way I'm going to get it right because I don't know how the coffee is going to respond, right? So I became realistic with my expectations, and we can do that with life, realizing that there's so much that we cannot control, and that the only thing we can control is how we respond to the situation, to the stimuli around us, how we think, our thoughts. So I hope this helps you lighten up your day, helps you create a new neuro association in your day, because so much we all talk about living the one life, like pursuing your passions. I love that stuff. But it all comes down to the day-to-day practice, because if you are miserable in your day, then you have a miserable life. And so we have to start to plant good seed and water that good seed so that we can grow a beautiful garden, aka have a beautiful life. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast here. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this, please share it with somebody else. Leave a comment, because that would help tremendously. At least get the word out and let me know that you're actually benefiting from what I'm sharing here. If you have any comments or questions, you can send them to me via my website at www.donnyraus.com. That is DONNYRAUS.com. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Remember, you only get one life. Live fully, live passionately, and most of all, live now.